Cuba 2003. Ghislaine Maxwell, an unknown person, Fidel Castro, Andres Pastrana, and Jeffrey Epstein posed together during Epstein's visit. Years later, Epstein's crimes and trafficking network would be exposed. Maxwell was convicted in 2021 for her role in his criminal enterprise. United States, early 1960s. A mother poses with a man who is definitely not her husband, years after her 1956 marriage. Such photographs hint at untold stories and complicated relationships. Family albums sometimes preserve mysteries that remain unexplained across generations of descendants. California, 1929. Young Marilyn Monroe, then Norma Jean, sits seaside with foster mother Ida Bolender. Monroe's difficult childhood involved multiple foster homes and instability. She would transform from troubled child to Hollywood's most iconic actress, dying tragically at 36. Tennessee, 1845. Early photographs capture former President Andrew Jackson just months before his death. The aging seventh president appears frail after years of frontier warfare and political battles. Jackson's controversial legacy included Indian removal policies and fierce democratic populism. Rabaul, Papua New Guinea, April 1943. Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto salutes naval pilots before departing on his final flight. This last photograph preceded his death when American forces, having decoded Japanese communications, shot down his aircraft over Bougainville Island hours later. Nuremberg, Germany, 1946. John Woods served as hangman at the war crimes trials, executing convicted Nazi officials. His competence was questioned as several executions were prolonged. Woods reportedly took satisfaction in his work, dispatching those responsible for genocide and atrocities. Majdanek, Poland, July-August 1944. Human bones and skulls lie piled at the German extermination camp after Soviet forces captured it nearly intact. The undeniable physical evidence documented Nazi genocide. Majdanek was among the first death camps liberated, shocking the world. Jerusalem, February 1948. Arab terrorists bombed the Palestine Post building, killing 4 and wounding dozens. The attack attempted to silence Jewish press following Arab rejection of the UN partition plan. Violence escalated as British mandate ended and Israeli independence approached. Western Front, World War I, a collection of photographs, documents the brutal trench warfare that devastated an entire generation. Over 16 million died in the conflict. Such images preserved the unprecedented industrial slaughter that transformed warfare and shattered European civilization forever. Washington, D.C., May 1961. Princess Grace Kelly of Monaco visits President Kennedy at the White House. The former Hollywood actress had married Prince Rainier in 1956, becoming Monaco's princess. Her fairy tale transformation captivated the world until her tragic death in 1982. Saipan, June 1944. American pilot Peter Stackpole holds a wounded Japanese boy in an airplane awaiting flight to a field hospital. Such moments of humanity occurred amid brutal Pacific fighting. Civilians, especially children, suffered terribly throughout the island-hopping campaigns. Tokyo, Japan, 1945. Japanese soldiers inspect wreckage of a downed American B-29 Superfortress bomber with a Browning M2 machine gun in the foreground. Strategic bombing devastated Japanese cities. Massive air raids killed hundreds of thousands of civilians before atomic bombings ended the war. Georgia, 1932. 18-year-old Angelo Herndon won the right to protest after being charged under Georgia's slave insurrection law. His case became a landmark civil rights victory. Herndon's courage challenged legal structures designed to suppress black political organizing in the Jim Crow South. Menton, France, June 1940. Italian and French soldiers meet as Italy entered World War II, attacking France. Mussolini opportunistically invaded as France collapsed under German assault. The brief Alpine campaign achieved little before France's armistice with Germany ended major fighting. Nazi Germany, World War II. Under Reinhard Heydrich's administration, bureaucratic efficiency served genocide. The SS leader organized the Holocaust with cold precision until Czech resistance assassinated him in 1942. His legacy represented bureaucracy's capacity for systematic evil and mass murder. United States, 1950s. A teenager poses in rolled-up jeans, saddle shoes, belt buckle to the side, and short-sleeved shirt. Such fashion defined American youth culture during the post-war era. Teenagers developed distinct identity through clothing, music, and rebellion against conformity. Vietnam-Cambodia border, 1970. Troops from the 9th Infantry Division engage enemy forces along the border. American forces conducted controversial incursions into Cambodia, pursuing North Vietnamese sanctuaries. The expansion of war sparked massive protests and political turmoil throughout the United States. New Orleans, Louisiana, 1937. Photographer E. Eudora Welty, who would become a celebrated author, captures Mardi Gras festivities. Her photographs documented Depression-era Southern culture. Welty's dual talents in photography and writing preserved Mississippi Delta life for future generations through powerful artistic vision. Venice, Italy, February 1926. Silent film stars Mary Pickford and Douglas Fairbanks tour the romantic city. Hollywood's original power couple fascinated audiences worldwide. They co-founded United Artists Studio, revolutionizing actor control over film production. Their marriage ended in 1936. France, circa 1873. Legendary actress Sarah Bernhardt poses in her famous coffin where she sometimes slept or studied roles. The theatrical eccentric cultivated a dramatic public persona. Bernhardt became one of history's most celebrated performers, touring internationally throughout a remarkable career. North Africa, autumn 1942. Italian soldiers attacked British positions during the Desert Campaign. Axis forces fought Commonwealth armies across Libya and Egypt. Italian units faced equipment shortages and supply problems. British forces eventually defeated Axis armies, turning the war's tide. Los Angeles, California, January 1957. A view from Hollywood Hills looks out over the Sunset and Vine area. Los Angeles sprawled rapidly during the post-war boom. The city transformed from regional center to global entertainment capital, defining American popular culture worldwide. Italy, January 1926. Mussolini's regime passed Law No. 100, empowering him to rule by decree without parliamentary approval. Liberal democracy effectively ended as executive power became absolute. This key step built fascist dictatorship, sidelining the legislature completely and establishing totalitarian control. France, 1895. Photographer Guillermo Chisi captures Mademoiselle Latreille on her bicycle, Mademoiselle Solange separately, then both together. Early photography documented women's increasing independence and mobility. Bicycles revolutionized women's freedom of movement despite social restrictions on female activity. United States, 1920s. Photographer Albert Witzel captures portrait of American dancer, model, and actress Olive Ann Alcorn. Silent film era celebrated beauty and theatrical performance. Witzel's glamorous portraits defined 1920s aesthetic ideals before talkies transformed the entertainment industry forever. San Francisco, California, January 1926. A grotesque photograph titled The Quick and the Dead shows a girl outdancing a skeleton in the Charleston competition, illustrating the physiological strain of difficult dance steps. The macabre image reflected 1920s fascination with mortality and excess. Pacific Theater, 1943. B-29 crew members pose beside caricatures of themselves painted on their aircraft. Such nose art personalized machines and boosted morale. Bomber crews faced terrifying odds during missions. Personalization helped humanize industrial warfares, dehumanizing mechanical violence. United States, 1990. Allegations surfaced that Prince Andrew participated in criminal activities involving a young girl. The Epstein files name him decades later. Andrew's association with convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein damaged the royal family's reputation and led to his withdrawal from public duties. Military Operation, 1944. A scene reminds observers of a certain war film. Such photographs captured moments that later inspired cinematic recreations. Hollywood frequently drew from documentary images when depicting historical events, blurring lines between actual history and dramatic interpretation. United States, February 1926. Future President Franklin Roosevelt hosts future British fascist leader Oswald Mosley on his boat. Mosley later founded the British Union of Fascists. The photograph captures an ironic moment before both men's divergent political paths became clear through history. Baltic Sea, January 1945. The German ship Wilhelm Gustloff sank after Soviet submarine torpedo attack, carrying over 10,000 passengers, mostly refugees. Over 9,000 died, including many children in history's deadliest maritime disaster. The tragedy remains largely forgotten despite horrific casualties. Kabul, Afghanistan, 1922. The Bargai-Bala Palace of King Amanullah Khan stands during his modernization efforts. The progressive monarch attempted westernizing reforms that eventually sparked conservative backlash. His reign ended in 1929 when traditionalist forces drove him into exile permanently. Hudson Bay, Canada, 1611. Henry Hudson was abandoned by his mutinous crew on North American shores. The sailors rebelled when Hudson refused, abandoning his search for the Northwest Passage to return to England. Hudson and loyal crew members perished. His fate remains unknown. Hollywood, 1952. Marilyn Monroe and Dale Robertson attend a celebrity baseball game in the Out of This World series. Celebrity charity events combined entertainment and athletics. Monroe's public appearances generated enormous media attention throughout her short but spectacular career. Chimio, New Mexico, early 18th century. Spanish colonial architecture appears in the Santuario de Chimio and Santo Niño Chapel. The structures represent centuries of Catholic influence in the Southwest. Such missions blended Spanish and indigenous architectural traditions, creating distinctive regional styles. Egypt, June 1940. Men of the 2nd Battalion, Queen's Own Cameron Highlanders train with a Bren gun mounted on a 15 CWT truck. British Commonwealth forces prepared for desert warfare against Italy. Training emphasized mobile warfare across North Africa's vast terrain and harsh conditions. Burma, January-February 1942. A Japanese Kawasaki Ki-48 bomber takes off for a bombing mission over Rangoon. Japan's offensive captured Burma, cutting the Burma Road supply line to China. Allied forces retreated before eventually launching counteroffensives that recaptured the territory. Ireland, June 1875. A storehouse fire released burning whiskey into Dublin streets with 13 casualties, all from alcohol poisoning rather than burns. Residents reportedly drank the flaming liquor flowing through gutters. The bizarre incident reflected poverty and desperation in Victorian-era Ireland. Germany, 1981. Marion Bachmeier appears after shooting her young daughter's rapist and murderer during his courtroom trial. 6 of 7 shots hit him, including 2 in the head. Her vigilante justice sparked national debate. She served 3 years for manslaughter, dying in 1996. Umatilla Reservation, Oregon, 1910. Men play cards on the reservation during an era of forced cultural suppression. Native Americans faced systematic attempts to destroy their traditions. Despite government pressure toward assimilation, indigenous communities maintained cultural practices and social bonds. Caen, Normandy, July 1944. A British 3rd Division's 6-pounder anti-tank gun positions alongside Canadian Sherman tanks in Rue Montois-Poissonnerie near Saint-Pierre Church. Allied forces fought brutal urban combat liberating Caen. The city suffered devastating destruction during weeks of intense fighting. Skokie, Illinois, 1977. The American Civil Liberties Union defended neo-Nazis' right to march through the heavily Jewish suburb with many Holocaust survivors. In response, the community established the Illinois Holocaust Museum and Education Center. Free speech debates continue balancing rights and harm. Palm Beach, Florida, 1936. 19-year-old John Kennedy holds a snake with his younger sister Rosemary behind him. Rosemary suffered intellectual disabilities and later underwent a disastrous lobotomy. The Kennedy family concealed her condition and institutionalization for decades until recent revelations. France, 1944–1945. Women known as les Tendues, who collaborated with Nazi occupation, were rounded up after liberation and brutally publicly humiliated in towns, villages, and cities. Heads shaved and paraded through streets, they faced mob violence. Thousands suffered this extrajudicial punishment. Dallas, Texas, January 1926. The city appears clad in ice after fighting a severe gale in zero weather for 7 hours. Such extreme winter storms were rare in North Texas. Residents struggled without modern infrastructure to handle the unusual freezing conditions and dangerous ice. Sollum, Libya, May 1941. Field Marshal Erwin Rommel observes from an Italian M1340 tank during North Africa operations. The German commander led Axis forces to initial victories against British Commonwealth armies. Rommel's tactical brilliance earned grudging respect even from enemies throughout the campaign. Russia, 1916. A soldier of the Russian Imperial Army practices on a shooting exercise during World War I, colorized by Igor Goncharov. Russian forces fought Germany and Austria-Hungary on the Eastern Front. Military failures contributed to revolutionary unrest that toppled the Romanov dynasty. San Diego, California, January 1979. 16-year-old Brenda Spencer opened fire at her school, killing 2 and injuring 9. When asked why, she said, "I don't like Mondays." Her father had bought her a Ruger rifle instead of treating her depression. The phrase inspired a song. England, 1945. A boy eats ice cream while sitting on an underwater mine after war's end. Thousands of unexploded ordnance littered Britain following years of conflict. Children often played dangerously near weapons before clearance efforts removed them. The casual photograph captures post-war innocence and peril. Malaya, January 1942. A Japanese Type 95 Hago light tank lies knocked out by Australian anti-tank fire during the Battle of Muar. Japanese forces overran Malaya, forcing British and Commonwealth retreat. Singapore fell within weeks, becoming one of Britain's worst military disasters. Germany, January 1945. Staff Sergeant Wilbert Steinmüller was killed in action over Germany. Thousands of American airmen die. During strategic bombing campaigns, bomber crews faced terrifying casualty rates. Steinmüller was one of many young men who never returned from missions over enemy territory. Pacific Theater, 1943. A B-25 Mitchell bomber of the 498th Squadron, 345th Bombardment Group, flies over Japanese anti-aircraft guns. Low-level attacks on shipping and installations proved devastatingly effective but extremely dangerous. American air power gradually achieved superiority despite fierce Japanese resistance. Hollywood, 1920s. Pioneer actress and producer Mary Pickford poses with her younger brother Jack on the backlot of early silent production sets at Sunset and Vine. Pickford became one of cinema's first major stars and co-founded United Artists, revolutionizing the film industry. United States, 1873. 3 Wild West legends pose together. Wild Bill Hickok seated left, Texas Jack Omohundro standing center, and Buffalo Bill Cody seated right. All three became frontier celebrities through theatrical performances, romanticizing Western life for Eastern audiences hungry for adventure stories. Auschwitz, Poland, 1941. Polish priest Maximilian Kolbe volunteered to die in place of another prisoner sentenced to death for an escape attempt. Kolbe argued that being old and childless, he should die instead. The Nazis accepted. Kolbe was canonized as a saint in 1982. Austria, 1967. Arnold Schwarzenegger poses with his older brother Meinhard. Meinhard died in a drunk driving crash on May 20, 1971, dying instantly. Arnold did not attend his funeral. Their relationship had been strained by their father's favoritism and competitive tensions. Pacific Ocean, September 1944. Sailors from submarine USS Finback pull a downed pilot from the water. The torpedo bomber had been shot down by Japanese anti-aircraft guns and crashed into the ocean. The rescued pilot was future President George H.W. Bush. Congo, 1964. Mercenaries from the 5 Commando Company prepare to fight Congolese Simba rebels during the chaotic post-independence civil war. Foreign mercenaries played controversial roles in African conflicts. The Congo crisis represented Cold War proxy warfare and colonial legacies' violent aftermath. Indian Ocean, May 1943. Indian independence fighter Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose poses with Japanese submarine crew in this colorized photograph. Bose allied with Axis powers against British colonial rule. His controversial collaboration divided Indian independence movement. He died mysteriously in 1945. Rome, Italy, 1938. Adolf Hitler visits Benito Mussolini, appearing together on the Palazzo Venezia balcony. The Axis alliance between Nazi Germany and Fascist Italy would drag both nations into catastrophic war. Mussolini's regime collapsed in 1943. Hitler committed suicide in 1945. Malaysia, 1511–1521. Enrique of Malacca, a Malay slave, may have been the first person to circumnavigate the globe. Part of the Magellan-Elcano expedition, Enrique was taken from Asia to Portugal in 1511 and returned in 1521, completing a global journey. Vietnam, 1966. Pilot Victor Vizcarra sits after being evacuated from a jungle landing site. After ejecting, his flame-engulfed F-105 fighter bomber passed beneath him as he parachuted before crashing into a mountain. He survived the terrifying experience despite catastrophic aircraft failure. Italy, World War II. Giuseppe Cordero Lanza di Montezemolo served as an Army General Staff Officer and grandfather of Luca Cordero di Montezemolo, future Ferrari president from 1991 to 2014. The family represented Italian nobility's continued influence across generations despite political upheavals. Alexandria, Egypt, July 1979. President Anwar Sadat and his daughter Noha watch as former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger receives a kiss from Sadat's grandson Sharif. Kissinger's shuttle diplomacy helped broker Egyptian-Israeli peace. Sadat was assassinated 2 years later. Memphis, Tennessee, April 1968. Photographer Joseph Lau captured this image within seconds of Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination. People point toward the shooter's location. King died at 39. His murder sparked riots across America and devastated the civil rights movement's leadership. Nettuno, Italy, 1944. A radio operator belonging to a flak battery receives firing coordinates during the Anzio campaign. German forces fiercely resisted Allied attempts to break out from the beachhead. The stalemate lasted months before Rome's eventual liberation in June 1944. Switzerland, 1829–1870. Josephine Bois-de-Chin, known as Madame Clafulia, was a famous sideshow performer born with hirsutism. Known to be gentle and motherly, her acts included singing and lectures about her life. She greatly impressed Napoleon III with her dignity and presence. United States, 1930s. President Franklin Roosevelt stated, "If the farmer starves today, we all starve tomorrow." His New Deal policies attempted helping agricultural communities devastated by depression and dust. T-Bowl, rural America, faced economic collapse, threatening the entire nation's food security. Hollywood, 1926. Lillian Gish and Lars Hansen appear in the Scarlet Letter adaptation. Gish was silent cinema's greatest dramatic actress. The Nathaniel Hawthorne adaptation explored Puritan-era adultery and shame. Silent films tackled controversial subjects despite increasing censorship pressures throughout the decade.